Welcome back, everybody. And it's my wife and I were at the grocery store today and picked up a squash and a zucchini. And I'm going to kind of saute this. And then I'm going to put a piece of boudin in there. And just kind of mix all of it together. While I was doing this, I decided, well, why don't I just go ahead and talk about how good squash and zucchini is and why you should be stockpiling squash and zucchini seeds. See, the term squash, if I understand it right, the term squash means to eat raw. So that you could take this plant and you could eat the squash and zucchini raw. You do not have to cook it, but we cook it to get some of the crispiness out of it, where it's a little bit more palatable. And we're just gonna, I've got a cast iron skillet here that I've sprayed some olive oil in. I'm going to take and put that in there, kind of stir it around a little bit, and then for a little bit of protein, I've got a piece of boudin I'm going to throw in there. Now the boudin's already pre-cooked, so all I'm supposed to do is just heat that up. This is the first time that I've cooked anything like this all together. I'm not quite sure how it's going to turn out. Oh yeah, seasoning. Some Mrs. Dash seasoning.
No salt, no MSG.
Yeah, no salt, no MSG. Add a little spice to it. Okay. And squash and zucchini use a well-rounded fertilizer. Something like triple 13 would work good, or something with plenty of nitrogen for the big leafy greens. And potash for the zucchini forming for the zucchini to form. The thing about it is that if you plant zucchini and squash close together, that they will cross-pollinate and you'll have a hybrid whenever you save the seeds. So the second generation seeds will probably produce, but the third generation, if you save the seeds for a third generation, they will not, probably won't reproduce. What else? They're pretty disease resistant. The zucchini and the squash are resistant to most pests because of the hard outer skin. That the leaves are susceptible to what's called it's a moldy, powdery mold. It's like a light mold that forms on the leaves. You just take some soapy water, and spray the leaves down with soapy water and wash the mold off. And the leaves will come back to a nice green, shiny tint to them. There's several different types of zucchini and squash. There's like a winter squash, butternut squash. There's a couple of different types of hybrid. Got acorn squash, for an example. The difference between summer squash and winter squash is how long they'll keep after they're picked. The winter squash will keep for several weeks, sometimes even a couple of months, if kept in a cool, dry place. Summer squash will only keep for a couple of weeks. So if you want something that you can store for a long time, go with a winter squash. Squash can be stored in like jars and pressure cook it. It's also part of what they call the three sisters. You plant the squash, the peas, and corn all together. And deer, and squash is resistant to deer. That for some reason they don't eat. Deer will not eat the leaves of the squash plants like they will other types of plants. The stems and leaves have got like a little small, fine hair on them. Yes, coming out good. And so I guess for some reason deer don't like the taste of the hair or the feel of the hair on the stems and leaves, and the deer won't eat it. It's alright. My wife is making, what is that nasty stuff?
Avocado.
Avocado dip. I'll eat a little bit of it. The big leaves provide protection for peas, so you can plant your peas and your squash together. And the peas will grow underneath the leaves or around the leaves. And the leaves will help protect the pea and bean sprouts from deer. between the two, from my experience, from my observations, the zucchini seems to be a little bit more drought resistant than the squash. So if you get something where you're worried about drought, you may want to plant more zucchini than squash. If you let the squash get too big or too large on the plant, the outside shell gets tough. You won't be able to cut it. Well, you will be able to cut it, but you won't be able to eat it. That's why you want to pick the squash and zucchini whenever they're small. Alright, now the zucchini, on the other hand, unlike the squash, is you can let that get bigger around and larger. And cut. I mean, sometimes I've even eaten it up to like 3 inches across and just cut it like in slabs and put it on there and eat it that way. All right, Chrissy, what do you think? You think it's ready?
Yep.
All right, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.